The transfer notice looked too small to change a life, but Han Mirae had learned early that paper could be dangerous. She folded the letter back into its envelope and slipped it into her pocket as the taxi rolled to a stop in front of Chungdam High. For a moment she just stared through the window. The school didn't look like a school. It looked like a drama set. Glass, steel, sharp lines, a giant digital screen on the front wall looping glossy clips of smiling students in uniforms, perfect in that manufactured way that made her skin crawl. Above the main gate, 3 words hovered in clean white font on the screen. Chungdam High, elite, visible, chosen. Underneath, a logo of a tiny crown made of pixels. Her fingers twitched as if to hide her face, an old habit. She forced her hand to stay still, paid the driver, and stepped out into air that smelled faintly of exhaust, perfume, and something sharper. Anxiety, maybe. Students flowed toward the gates in groups, phones held low but never far from their hands, thumbs flicking in small, constant motions. Snatches of conversation drifted past her. The words slid off her like rain on a window. She kept her head down and joined the stream. The security guard at the gate glanced at her transfer form, then at her face, then at her wrists. He checked that it was on, eyes flicking to the home screen. She saw his jaw unclench a little when he spotted the standard apps. Mandatory ones. She nodded, even as a knot tightened under her ribs. The hallway smelled like floor polish and expensive perfume. Glass trophy cases lined the walls, filled with awards and trophies, photos of clubs and festivals and smiling faces on stages. Everyone walked like they knew exactly where they were going. Mirae moved carefully, counting steps, tracing the route from the hand-drawn map the office had given her. She looked up just in time to avoid colliding with a girl whose ponytail swung like a metronome. The way she said welcome felt like a threat. The girl was already walking away, surrounded by a cluster of followers. A boy nearby whispered, just loud enough for Mirae to catch it. Mirae heard the name, stored it without meaning to. Cha. She didn't want to know who the queen was in this place. Queens needed peasants and targets. She was done being either. She found her classroom, 2 to 3, second floor, third door on the right, just as the bell rang. The teacher had an iPad in one hand and a bored expression that brightened only when he noticed her. She hated this part, but refusing would stand out more. Murmurs, the kind that never stayed whispers for long. Her skin prickled. She kept her face calm. Of course there was. The quiet girl by the window. She almost laughed. The dramas wrote themselves here. She moved to the seat, feeling eyes track her. As she set her bag down, a phone vibrated on the desk in front of hers. The boy sitting there glanced at the screen, then let out a breath he'd clearly been holding. Mirae pretended to look out the window, but her gaze shifted to his reflection in the glass. He had soft brown hair that fell just enough into his eyes, the kind of smile that probably looked brighter when he wasn't tired. His uniform fit like it had been tailored around him. There was a band-aid on his finger, a small detail that didn't match the polished image. He caught her looking and turned slightly. Their eyes met in the reflection first, then directly. The name hit her like a step missed on a staircase. For a second the classroom blurred and was replaced by a gymnasium echoing with laughter and cruel chants. A microphone squealing. A boy's voice cutting through the noise as he called everyone cowards. She blinked hard and the present snapped back into place. He smiled. It was smaller than the one on his old poster, the one that had been stuck on the wall of her middle school's computer room for a year. Less idle, more boy. Before she could ask what he meant, the teacher started roll call. Names, numbers, a few jokes. Every time a name was called, the student glanced at their phone, as if checking something more important than attendance. When he reached Cha Yeren, the girl from the hallway lifted her hand with a perfect smile. Her phone screen flashed bright for a second, catching the corner of Mirae's eye. On it, a small golden crown icon pulsed above a number. 1. Homeroom dissolved into admin announcements and an orientation that assumed everyone already knew the rules. At the end, the teacher cleared his throat. Collective groan. Phones appeared like a flock of birds taking flight. There it was. The word that had been hovering under everything since she stepped through the gate. Snickers bubbled up from a few desks. Her old school had had something similar once. A popularity board, they'd called it. Students could vote on who was the funniest, the prettiest, the most dateable. It had started as a game. It hadn't ended like one. She pressed her lips together. At lunch, everyone scattered. She stayed behind, pretending to organize her bag until most of the class had left. When she finally stepped into the hallway, it was buzzing. Clusters of students huddled with their phones out, whispering, laughing too loudly, gasping at numbers. Screens lit the corridor like little stages. Every so often, someone would raise their voice to call out a rank. She found a quiet corner near the stairwell and leaned against the wall, unlocking her phone. There it was, waiting in the school app folder that had downloaded automatically when she connected to the campus Wi-Fi. CrownRank. The icon was a tiny crown in gold, pixels just slightly jagged at the edges. It looked harmless. So had the old poll at her last school, the one that had ended with a girl on a hospital bed and an entire class swearing they hadn't meant it to go that far. Her thumb hovered over the icon. It's required, she reminded herself. Expulsion was not an option. Not with her parents already stretching themselves thin to get her here. She tapped. The screen went black for a beat, then bloomed into color. A slick intro animation played. A crown assembling itself from floating hearts, views, and little speech bubbles. Text faded in. Welcome, new player. Please confirm. Name. Han Mirae class. 2 to 3, she confirmed. A loading bar crawled across the screen. Beneath it, a phrase appeared. Visibility is value. Her stomach twisted. The loading finished and a dashboard unfolded. At the top, 3 tabs. Rankings, missions, penalties. In the center, her profile appeared, half empty. Han Mirae class 2 to 3 initial rank. 132 out of 165. She exhaled slowly. Bottom but not bottom 3. Her shoulders loosened by a fraction. Under her profile, a list of the top 10. Cha Yeren was first, with a glittering gold crown icon and numbers next to her that looked more like follower counts than grades. Photos of her smiling at school events, posing with friends, attending some charity thing that looked suspiciously staged. Third on the list was a name she recognized from old magazine covers. 7th was the captain of the basketball team. 12th, just outside the spotlight, was Seo Junho. She tapped his profile. A small bio popped up, full of achievements. Student council, music festival trophies, drama club leads. At the top, there was a faint ghost of another crown icon, half-transparent, labeled former number 1. A tiny graph at the bottom showed his rank over time. A smooth line at the top for months, then a sharp, jagged drop a few weeks ago. Right around when, according to the whispering news threads, a student from another class had been quietly sent away after a bullying scandal. Her thumb hovered over the graph. A notification popped up as if the app wanted to be helpful. Note: sudden rank drops may be linked to reported behavior, rumors, or low engagement. She wanted to throw her phone into the nearest trash can. Instead, she backed out and scrolled to the bottom of the list. Rank 163, rank 164, rank 165. Each had a red border. Next to their names, a small icon of an hourglass blinked. A countdown timer ticked down beside it. 11 hours, 54 minutes, 32 seconds. Something cold slid down her spine. A shadow fell over her screen. She locked her phone and looked up. He was leaning against the opposite wall, tray balanced in one hand, the other tucked into his pocket. He gestured with his chin toward her phone. He pulled a face, a mix of sympathy and disgust. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. He looked at her, really looked, and for a second the exhaustion in his eyes was so deep it felt like a shared secret. He pushed off the wall and started walking away, then paused. She watched him go, the name echoing in her head. Not a question, a warning. The rest of the day was a blur of faces and names she wouldn't remember. She ate lunch alone on the rooftop, the city sprawling below her like a promise she wasn't sure she wanted. The penalty announcement arrived at 10 p.m. as a push notification. Her phone buzzed once, a sharp, clinical vibration against her desk. She stared at it for a full minute before her curiosity won. She tapped. The app opened to the penalties tab. A drumroll sound effect played, low and ominous. Then, 3 profiles appeared, stamped with a red banner. Penalty issued. Below each name, a description of their punishment. One had to clean the school's notoriously filthy incinerator room for a week. Another had their account temporarily frozen, unable to gain or lose points. The third, a boy from class 2-1, had a single brutal line under his name. A notification popped up at the bottom of the screen. She felt a sick lurch in her stomach. It was a game. A vicious, stupid, all-consuming game. And she was in it. The next morning, the air in the classroom was different. Thicker. The boy from 2-1 was absent. No one mentioned him. It was like he'd been erased. Chayerin, however, was radiant. Her rank was still number 1, but the number beside it had jumped by a few thousand points. She laughed a little louder, her friends orbiting her a little closer. Mirae kept her head down. She had a mission now. It had appeared overnight in her app. It was simple, almost too simple. She had to get 100 views on her profile by the end of the week. 100 views. It sounded like nothing. But how? She had no friends here. No one to tell. She spent the day in a low-grade panic, checking her phone between classes. The number stayed stubbornly at 3. Her own view, Juno's, and maybe the teacher's. At the end of the day, she was packing her bag when Juno stopped by her desk. He didn't say anything, just dropped a small, folded note on her textbook. She waited until he was gone to open it. It was a hastily drawn map of the school's back alleys and lesser-known corridors. At the bottom, a handwritten line. He'd circled a spot on the map. The old music room. She hesitated. This was how it started. Favors, debts, alliances. She'd promised herself she would stay out of it. But the number 3 on her profile page felt like a judgment. She found the old music room on the 3rd floor of the arts building. It was unlocked, dust motes dancing in the single beam of light from a grimy window. An old piano sat in the corner, covered in a dusty sheet. Juno was sitting on a stool, not looking at her, just staring at the wall. He finally looked at her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. He nodded toward the piano. She walked over and sat down, her fingers hovering over the keys. She hadn't played in years. Not since before. He started to play. A simple melody, hesitant at first, then more confident. It was a song she didn't recognize, sad and beautiful and full of a quiet anger. She found herself playing along, a harmony she didn't know she knew. They played for what felt like hours, the music filling the empty room. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. When they finished, the sun was setting, painting the room in shades of orange and purple. She looked at him, a question in her eyes. He just shook his head. She understood. It wasn't about the mission. It was about this. A small pocket of silence in the middle of the noise. A place where the rankings didn't matter. As she was leaving, he called out to her. She turned. He was holding out his phone. On the screen was her profile. The view count was now 4. He'd followed her. A small, almost invisible act of rebellion. But in this school, it was everything. She smiled, a real smile this time. Maybe, just maybe, she'd found an ally after all. Morning came with a gray sky and a notification. Han Mirae woke before her alarm, the faint buzz on her desk dragging her out of a shallow, restless sleep. For a second, she didn't remember why her chest felt tight. Then flashes of red borders and countdown timers flickered across her mind. She sat up, throat dry, and reached for her phone. CrownRank, weekly penalties completed. Her thumb hovered over the banner. She told herself she was just checking if her name was still outlined in red, if the app had decided to make good on its promise to monitor interference. She tapped. The app opened to a summary page. No glossy animation this time, just neat lines of text. Penalty report reality edit. Faces, 1. Records, 1. Futures, 1. Below that, 3 small profile pictures, slightly blurred as if seen through frosted glass. Names, classes, She scanned them. None were hers. None were Juno's. Her lungs remembered how to work. She clicked the tiny arrow for more details before she could stop herself. A warning popped up. Viewing penalty details may affect your emotional stability. Continue? She almost laughed. You think? She muttered. Then she closed the app instead. She didn't need to see exactly what had been edited, which face had been broken, whose record had been stained with a new accusation. Knowing it wasn't him this time would have to be enough. In the bathroom mirror, she studied her reflection. Same face, same tired eyes. If the app had edited anything about her, it had done it somewhere less visible, on someone else's screen, in someone else's head. On the walk to school, the city seemed slightly off. Or maybe it was just her. Students in Chungdam uniforms clustered at bus stops and crosswalks, screens lighting their faces with that particular blue that made everyone look a little ghostly. Snippets of penalty gossip trailed behind them like exhaust. Inside the school gate, the air thrummed with that post-penalty tension. Everyone trying to act normal, everyone aware they were one bad week from the wrong side of the app. In class, phones lay face down but never out of reach. The teacher droned through a literature lesson. Mirae's notebook stayed mostly blank. The words on the board slid off her brain. At break, she slipped out into the hallway earlier than most, needing to move before she suffocated. Students streamed around her, river currents splitting and merging. She avoided eye contact, eyes scanning instinctively for one face. She saw him at the end of the corridor, leaning against a row of lockers. Seo Junho was surrounded by a loose semicircle of classmates, all talking at once. He laughed at something, the sound carrying down the hall. His arm was in a brace, just a slim one, black against his white shirt. She hadn't noticed it on the app. The sight jolted her. Somewhere in the mess of last night, while she'd been obsessing over numbers, he'd been living something tangible enough to leave marks. As she watched, someone shoved a phone into his free hand. He rolled his eyes but obliged, tapping open the app. The cluster leaned in. They laughed. Mirae felt something sharp twist inside her chest. If they knew how many of those points had come from one girl at rank 165, if they knew she'd let herself fall off the bottom of their world so his number could inch upward, they would still laugh. The game had taught them that other people's falls were just content. She turned away before he could look up and see her staring. At lunch, she discovered what being at the very bottom felt like. It wasn't dramatic. No one threw food at her. No one carved insults into her desk. It was quieter than that, more surgical. Mirae kept walking. Her hands didn't shake. She'd learned long ago that the first rule of surviving a crowd's attention was to give them nothing to work with. No flinch, no tears. She ate quickly, then escaped to the stairwell where the reception was bad and the echoes made it feel like her own space. Her phone buzzed. She braced for another CrownRank notification and found instead a message from an unknown number. She frowned. She didn't answer. The dots flickered and then vanished for good. The app was woven into everything. Anonymous texts, whispers, rumors. It all blurred. There was no clean line between real and game, players and people. That night, the app updated itself without asking. When she opened it, a new banner danced across the top. New feature, duo missions. Top players may select one partner. Success. Bonus points for both. Failure, joint penalty. Underneath, the text glowed. Build alliances. Share fate. Her gut clenched. Sharing fate sounded poetic until you remembered whose hands were writing the missions. A notification popped up almost immediately in the Missions tab. Special Duo Mission Host Pick. Primary, Seo Junho number 1. Secondary, Seo Junho number 34. Mission revealed at 8 o'clock. She stared at the pairing. Her fingers went cold. Of course they'd link them. The Queen and the Fallen Prince. It made perfect narrative sense. The host knew how to keep people watching. She slept badly, caught in dreams where crowns shuffled themselves around a board, swallowing faces as they moved. In the morning, the mission went live. Mirae read it on the way to school, standing in a subway car pressed between strangers. The text was simple. Duo mission truth leak. Objective. Obtain and upload confidential information about any student to the rumor feed. Rules. Confidential equals not public yet. Must include image or file evidence. If upload is traced to you, you take full penalty. Reward for success. Plus 800 points each. Failure or refusal. Minus 800 points each. Her first thought was that it was impossible. No way the school would allow that. No way this had been running under the adults' noses. Then she remembered the way teachers looked away when phones lit up red. How the principal's statement after last month's accident had used the words unfortunate and personal choice and online rumors as if they had nothing to do with anything. Yeren was already trending in the app feed by the time Mirae reached the gate. People speculated about who she'd target. Names floated around like bait. Mirae pushed through the noise, heart pounding. Every rumor was a loaded gun. In class, Yeren sat with perfect posture. Phone turned screen down on her desk. Junho's was beside his notebook, the mission notification still visible. He looked like he hadn't slept much. Dark shadows sat under his eyes, but his uniform was immaculate. Mirae watched his knuckles whiten around his pen. Yeren turned, hair swinging. The teacher walked in, cutting the conversation short. Lessons began. Mirae didn't hear any of them. Her mind ran in circles around the mission. Yeren wouldn't be stupid enough to target someone untouchable. She'd pick a safe victim, someone the app wouldn't protect, someone the school wouldn't defend. Someone like you, a dark little voice suggested. At lunch, Mirae stepped out into the courtyard to breathe air that didn't smell like stale classroom. Students clustered in clumps, screens glowing with updates. New hot topic. Who will Cha Yeren sacrifice? Someone had even made a poll. The names made her stomach knot. Her own wasn't on there yet. She sat on a low wall by the trees, phone heavy in her hand. She opened the app. Her rank sat at 165, stubbornly red. No amount of scrolling changed it. Junho's had slid further overnight. 34 to 37. The mission reward could yank him back into the teens, maybe higher. It was bait meant for someone who still believed points could solve everything. She clicked into the mission details again, reading the fine print. The app claimed they could only be penalized if the leak was traced to them. Watching how easily it moved points around, she didn't believe it. A system that profited from pain didn't care about rules when rules got in the way. Her messages pinged. She ignored it. She blocked the number. There was no point playing tag with ghosts. On a whim, she opened the suggest penalty option in the advanced menu. Prompt popped up. Suggestion, blank. Target, blank. It was empty, waiting for someone to feed it. She closed it quickly, a sour taste rising in her mouth. By the last period, tension in the class was so thick it felt like bad weather. The mission's deadline loomed, 1800 hours. As the bell rang, Yeren stood, smoothing her skirt. People watched overtly, shamelessly curious. He didn't answer. For a moment, Mirae thought he might refuse, consequences be damned. Then she watched him glance around the room. The hopeful, expectant faces. The few worried ones. The phones already open to the mission screen, and something in his expression shuddered. Her pulse stuttered. She packed her bag slowly, waiting until they had left, until most of the class had drifted out in a murmuring wave. Then she slipped into the hallway. She didn't follow them. She followed the current. Rumors flowed faster than bodies here. Clusters of students formed and dissolved, words spilling between them in low, excited tones. Her phone buzzed. System notice. Duo mission in progress. A tiny red dot pulsed next to it, like a heartbeat. She walked without thinking, letting her feet choose. They took her to the second-floor landing overlooking the teacher's room corridor. From there, through the glass, she saw them. Yeren stood near the door, glancing down at her phone between bursts of bright, empty small talk with a teacher. Junho sat at a side table, flipping through graded papers with a frown. His posture was polite, deferential, almost bored. No one looking at them would suspect they were considering stealing someone's future in exchange for points. Mirae's phone chimed again. Minor penalty suggestion approved. She blinked. She hadn't suggested anything. Below the notification, a feed post loaded automatically. It was a blurry photo of a girl from Class 1, crying in a bathroom, makeup smudged. Caption: heard she's sleeping with a teacher for better grades. Uneasy face. Her fingers went numb. This was how the game played. It didn't need facts. It needed engagement. If Yeren and Juno didn't upload something bigger, something more explosive, the host would let smaller, uglier rumors accumulate until someone broke. The knowledge sat like a stone in her stomach. She looked from her phone to the corridor below, to Yeren choosing a target, to Juno caught in the orbit, gravity pressing down. She could stay out of it. She'd already interfered once. The system had noticed. One more push and it might push back harder. Or she could give the game what it wanted before it decided to take more. In the empty hallway, her footsteps sounded too loud. She walked back to the class, each step clicking like a countdown. Inside, the room was nearly empty. Just a couple of students scrolling through their feeds, snickering, and a girl at the back pretending to study. Mirae sat at her desk, unlocked her phone, and opened the rumor submission form. Her reflection stared back at her in the black border of the screen. Submit new rumor, she typed slowly. Transfer student from Guangjin caught accessing restricted files in IT room. Target: Han Mirae. It was almost funny. The system wouldn't even have to work hard to make it look true. Later, if she needed to break into the IT room for real, the rumor would already have laid the groundwork. She hesitated at the evidence field. You could upload a blurred picture, a fake screenshot, anything. She didn't have one. The app pinged. No evidence uploaded. Reduced impact. Proceed? She hit yes. The post slid into the feed so smoothly it made her sick. Within seconds, it had 2 likes, then 5, then a comment. LOL, not surprised. She looks like that type. Her rank shuddered, then flickered. 165 glowed a little brighter, as if the system were pleased. Now it needed a confession, a face to attach to the rumor. She stood and walked to the front of the class where the whiteboard still held fragments of the last lesson. The 2 students looked up, puzzled. By the time Yeren and Juno returned from the teacher's room, a small crowd had gathered outside class 2 to 3. Yeren's eyes lit with curiosity. She quickened her pace. Juno followed, a crease forming between his brows. Inside the classroom, Mirae stood at the front, hands at her sides, phone propped against a stack of books. The live icon blinked in the corner of the projected screen. Comments scrolled by faster than she could read. She met her own gaze in the tiny preview window. She looked calm. It was a lie. The viewer count ticked up. The murmuring outside the door got louder. A ripple of sound. That was true or near enough. She hadn't actually broken in. But she'd lingered longer than necessary, watching a tech staff member move past racks of servers. The comments exploded. Yeren watched from the doorway, eyes narrowed. At her shoulder, Juno stood very still. In the feed, the rumor about Mirae climbed to the top of the hot list. Her profile stats plummeted, the numbers updating in real time. A notification flashed across everyone's screens simultaneously. System update. Based on recent activity, rankings have been adjusted. Bottom 3. Number 163, name. Number 164, name. Number 165, Han Mirae, 2 to 3. Penalty type: public fall from grace. Details released at 2000 hours. The classroom buzzed. Someone whistled. Someone else muttered, she really asked for it. Mirae ended the live stream and locked her phone. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought she might throw up. She stepped down from the front, intending to slip through the crowd before anyone could say anything. Juno moved first. A strange warmth flickered under the fear. That shouldn't have hurt. She hadn't expected more. But the old memory of him sitting beside her behind the gym, sharing silence and cheap snacks, rose like an ache. Yeren stepped in then, smiling with all teeth. Yeren's smile sharpened. The app chimed. Duo mission result. Inconclusive. Preliminary reward. Plus 200 points each for participation. Penalty review pending. Mirae exhaled. The host had decided to keep them on the hook, not let them out clean or punish them fully. Yet, as the crowd dispersed, the weight of what she'd triggered settled over Mirae's shoulders. Bottom 3. Public penalty. She'd painted a target on her own back. That night, at home, the penalty details arrived. Penalty: Han Mirae, 2-3. Format: Live Public Apology Challenge. Location: Main building rooftop. Objective: Stand on designated platform and apologize for unauthorized access until viewer count reaches 500. Failure: Punishment escalation, physical risk. Her vision tunneled for a second. She scrolled down. Note: Class 2-3 encouraged to attend. The rooftop, of course. The game loved drama. At 2000 hours, the door to the roof was already propped open. The sky was a heavy lid of cloud, city lights bleeding upward at the edges. A makeshift platform, a low metal table, stood near the fence, its legs slightly uneven on the concrete. Students clustered around, phones up, faces lit from below. The air buzzed with that specific excitement people pretended wasn't cruelty. The live stream was already running on the app. Viewer count, 112 and climbing. Comments scrolled in. Mirae stepped out onto the roof. The wind cut through her blazer, sharp and damp. She felt every eye turn toward her, the weight of their attention pressing against her skin. A message popped up on her screen. Welcome, Han Mirae. Please step onto the platform to begin. Her knees wanted to lock. She walked anyway. The metal table wobbled as she climbed on. For a heartbeat, the world tilted. She stared straight ahead, fixed her gaze on a neon sign in the distance so she wouldn't look down. She lifted her phone, holding it at chest height so the camera could capture her face and the crowd behind her. The viewer count ticked upward. 163, 178, 201. She bowed, a stiff, small movement. Boos and applause mingled. It would have been funny if it weren't so sharp. She repeated the apology. The viewer count crawled. 243, 259, 270. Her legs ached from keeping her balance. The table creaked faintly under her weight. Someone near the front laughed, nudging his friend. The app chimed in her hand. Penalty intensity: moderate. Physical risk: conditional. Conditional on what? She didn't want to know. As she bowed again, a gust of wind caught her, making the table wobble. Her stomach lurched. A ripple went through the crowd. Half concern, half disappointment that she hadn't actually fallen. Her muscles trembled. She took another breath, forming the words of another apology, when she felt it. A subtle shift in weight under her feet that wasn't from the wind. Someone at the edge of her vision reached out with one shoe, nudged the leg of the table. Just enough. The metal scraped. The platform tipped. For a heartbeat, she was weightless. The sky, the fence, and the sea of upturned faces blurred together. The phone slipped from her hand, spinning. The live stream caught a whirl of light and concrete. Then an impact. Not against concrete, not against the fence. Against arms. The world snapped back into place. She found herself sprawled against a solid chest, breath knocked out of her. The sharp bite of the table's edge passed inches from her hip as it crashed to the ground. Phones jerked downward as people stumbled back. A collective gasp rolled across the rooftop. The voice was slightly breathless, strained with effort. She looked up. Seo Junho's face hovered above hers, eyes wide, hair messier than usual from the sudden movement. His arm, the one that had been in a brace, was now between her and the fallen table, shoulder twisted at an odd angle. Pain etched fine lines around his mouth. She swallowed. He laughed weakly. He let someone loop his good arm over their shoulder. Another student supported him from the other side. As they guided him toward the stairwell, he looked back at her. His gaze flicked to the toppled table, then to her phone, then to her face. He didn't say anything out loud, but she heard the question anyway. Why did you climb up there? Because I put myself there, she thought. So they wouldn't put you. In the sterile brightness of the hospital later, his smile looked washed out. He cradled his arm in a sling while a nurse scolded him for not being more careful. The nurse shot her a look. When they were alone, the room seemed too quiet. Machines hummed softly. Outside the window, the world went on as if breaking bones for points and almost falling off roofs were just normal after-school activities. His mouth twitched. She looked at her hands. He flinched just a little. The sling creaked as he shifted. He huffed out something that wasn't quite a laugh. He looked at her, really looked, as if trying to strip away the transfer label and the bottom rank red glow. Her breath caught. Her throat closed. Behind her eyes, a gymnasium flickered. A cheap microphone in a sweaty hand. His voice, younger but familiar, yelling at a crowd to stop laughing. Her fingers dug into the edge of her chair. The game wasn't built to handle this kind of memory. It tried to quantify everything. Some things resisted being turned into points. Silence stretched between them. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't empty either. She wanted to say yes. It would have been the kind thing, the human thing. He opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded once. As she left the hospital, her phone buzzed again. New round announced, voting trial. She checked it under the jaundiced parking lot light. Voting trial reset. Objective: each student must vote to reset one player. Reset equals removal from CrownRank plus school transfer. Note: failure to vote equals automatic rank penalty. The candidate list was short. Too short. Seo Junho's name sat near the top, highlighted. Underneath the rules, a message scrolled in small, cheerful text. Sometimes, to fix a system, you must remove the bug. Her stomach pitched. People would vote. Out of fear, resentment, boredom. It didn't matter why. The algorithm would count each tap the same. Her screen flickered. For a second, static crawled across the app. Then a new window popped up. Plain white, no animation, no crown. Private message from host. She froze. No one she knew had ever mentioned seeing that phrase. The message unfolded line by line, as if someone were typing it live. Player Han Mirae, you have interfered with the game 3 times. 1. Transferred value points to Seo Junho. 2. Redirected rumor impact to yourself. 3. Altered penalty outcome via unplanned rescue event. SHE hadn't planned that, but the system didn't care who had actually moved. It only cared about results. Your actions are interesting. You have 2 choices. A. Continue as a standard player. Watch the vote remove Seo Junho. B. Accept promotion. Become the next host. Control penalties and ranks. Under that, one last line appeared, slower than the others. Note: hosts have no rank, no class, no record. You will lose your status as Han Mirae. At the bottom of the screen, 2 buttons materialized. Decline or accept. Her reflection in the phone's glass looked pale, eyes too wide. Behind her, across the parking lot, fluorescent light bathed the hospital entrance. Through the glass doors, she could see Junho arguing with a nurse about being discharged early. She thought of the girl who had once stood on a gym stage while a crowd laughed and pointed, her name on a big screen next to the word ugliest. She thought of the boy who had taken the mic and called everyone cowards. She thought of a world where she did nothing now and watched the game swallow him whole in the name of balance. The wind picked up, carrying distant traffic noise and the faint echo of a siren. Her thumb hovered over the screen, shaking. Welcome to the game, the first notice had said. She hadn't understood then. This wasn't a game. It was a choice machine, and it had finally given her one that mattered. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Her finger drifted toward accept. Her finger trembled over accept. The phone asked her to tap again. She pressed the button like signing a contract no one else could see. The parking lot vanished. Her senses blurred and her world shrank to the size of the screen. Welcome, new host candidate. A voice slid into her mind. You took long enough. She spun around. The hospital entrance was empty. Who are you? She asked. Old host. Better word. Prisoner. An avatar flickered into existence with a crown icon. Glitched at the edges. I stayed too long. They like replacements. You'll do. You're the one who made this? No. I just learned how to survive in it. And how to hurt back. 3 images flashed up. Her thumb hitting yes on the transfer. Her live stream confession. Junho catching her as the table fell. 3 interferences. 3 times you refused to let the game write the script. Time to write your own. If I become host, can I stop them from resetting him? You can change where the gun is aimed. You can break the gun if you're clever. But the price. No rank. No class. No record. No one will remember me. Do you remember test subject 0? The girl who jumped after the middle school poll. Most people don't. That's how they keep doing this. You're asking me to become a ghost. Better a ghost than a spectator. The vote has already begun. Seo Junho, reset? Yes/no. The green bars were winning. Fine. Tell me what to do. Welcome, host. The world snapped back. Host permissions granted. A new tab appeared. Overview. Control. History. She tapped control. The whole school existed in tiny icons and numbers. Profiles like playing pieces. Penalty scripts lined up like sharpened knives. She could see exactly how many students had tapped yes to resetting Junho. It made her feel sick. It made her feel powerful. We built a cage to survive, then realized we were locked inside it. Break it. What if we make them aim at themselves? She whispered. Go on. She created a new mission. Final round mirror vote. Watch a compilation of your own recent CrownRank activity. Vote if you deserve your current rank. She attached footage to each profile. Laughter at humiliation. Quick downvotes. Situations where they could have done something and chose not to. Launch to all players? Yes. The notification went out. New mandatory mission. Mirror vote. Screens lit up. Faces changed. Confusion. Amusement. Then discomfort. Their choices had always been visible. Just never to themselves. The system shuddered. Votes rolled in. Yes, I deserve this rank. No, I don't. The algorithm strained. Error margin high. Not this time, she whispered. She slipped into the history tab and started deleting. The penalties. One by one. Delete entry? Yes. Resistance shuddered through the code. Host action unauthorized. She ignored it. You're overclocking it. It will break. That's the point. She selected one last command. Reset all ranks to 0. The app froze. All across the city, students watched as their numbers blinked out. Crowns vanished. Rankings temporarily unavailable. In the host view, her own profile had turned transparent. Han Mirae, host mode active. Anchor status, releasing. What does that mean? The system doesn't let anchors leave in one piece. Translation. Say your goodbyes. She checked the school map. Junho was racing through hallways. She slipped through the side gate and climbed the stairs to the roof. The door was heavy. She pushed it open. He was already there. Seo Junho stood near the fence, chest rising and falling too fast. He spun at the sound. There you are, he said. How did you? I don't know. Everything's been glitching. Then my phone froze on your name. Then it disappeared. Like you were being deleted. And my body moved before my brain caught up. Junho, you're not going to be reset. The game is breaking. I know. Everyone's freaking out. Yeren punched a wall. What did you do? I became the thing they were afraid of. The host. That's not funny. I'm not joking. She held up her phone. I turned their mirror around. Made them watch themselves. Then I cut the wires. You hacked CrownRank? More like killed it. He laughed short, disbelieving. Of course you did. Anchor unlinking. 60%. The rooftop wavered. Her knees wobbled. He gripped her shoulders. Easy. What does that mean? This host thing. What happens to you? I think it means I don't get to stay in the story. No. Someone has to pay the bill. Systems like this don't just go quietly. Why you? Because I said yes. Because I pressed accept when everyone else was just scrolling. You always say it like there was no other choice. There was. You could have walked away. Could you have done that? He closed his mouth. That's what I thought. Anchor unlinking. 75%. So what, you just vanish? Like you died? No. Worse. Like I never existed. No rank. No record. No Han Mirae in attendance books or chat logs. Even if you try to remember, the details will slip. I refuse. You don't get to negotiate with code. Then I'll negotiate with me. I'll write it down. I'll tell other people. She put a hand over his mouth. Listen to me. There's something more important than whether you remember my name. You're more than your rank. More than their app, more than their rumors, more than their scripts. You were before and you still are without it. You wrote that on my notebook. Didn't you? I found it today. A little doodle of a crown with a line through it. Anchor unlinking. 85%. Promise me something. Anything. Live a life they can't reduce to an icon. That's such a you thing to ask. You don't know me. Then tell me before you go. Tell me everything. Anchor unlinking. 90%. You once stood between me and a crowd that wanted to eat me alive. You held a bad microphone and told them they were cowards. I decided that day that if you ever needed someone to return the favor, I would. I remember something. A stage. A vote. Someone crying. Was that? It doesn't matter. You did the right thing when it was hard. That's who you are. Anchor unlinking. 95%. I'll remember you. I don't care what the stupid app does. I'll remember. Maybe you'll remember a feeling. That's enough. It's not. Tell me your name again. Han Mirae. The girl at the bottom of your list who loved you enough to break your cage. Mirae. Anchor unlinking. 99%. You did it. Congratulations. Sorry. The rooftop rushed away. Junho staggered forward. 1 second he was holding warm fingers. The next his hand clutched at air. His phone hit the concrete. The screen showed nothing but his home screen, no CrownRank icon. Just a blank spot where something important had been. He spun around. The rooftop was empty. Mirae? He called. The name felt wrong in his mouth. Silence answered. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to conjure her face. Dark hair. Steady eyes. His brain offered static. Emotion without details. Below, the school hummed with panic and forced normalcy. Teachers scrambled to explain why the app was gone. In classrooms, students sat staring at blank screens. In class 2 to 3, there was an empty desk by the window. No nameplate, no books, just a faint ring in the dust. A few people frowned at it. By lunch, they'd moved a potted plant there. Days passed. The story of CrownRank became that thing everyone swore they never took seriously. Junho went to school. He answered questions about the game. He talked about pressure, about fear, about how easy it was to tap yes on something ugly. At night, he dreamed of falling tables and hands grabbing his and a voice saying, "You're more than your rank." He'd wake up with that sentence pounding in his chest, and no idea who had said it first. One afternoon, weeks after the collapse, he opened his notebook in class and found a doodle on the corner of a page. He didn't remember drawing it. It was a small crown with a line slashed through it. Underneath, tiny handwriting curled. "You're more than your rank." He stared at it for a long time, pen hovering above the paper. Something in his chest unclenched, just a little. At the back of his mind, a girl laughed softly, the sound more feeling than memory. He smiled, almost despite himself, and wrote beneath the doodle, "I know." Outside, in a different neighborhood, a girl in a different uniform walked home from a different school. Her phone buzzed with ordinary notifications, group chats, homework alerts, a reminder from a language app she kept forgetting to open. There was no CrownRank icon on her screen. She couldn't remember ever having one. The classmates around her chatted about exams, dramas, part-time jobs. Someone complained about their follower count. Someone else showed off a selfie. The sound washed over her like rain, loud, then background. She reached the bottom of the hill leading to her new apartment and paused. For no reason she could name, she looked up. Across the street, a bus stopped. Students poured out. Among them, a boy in a familiar uniform stepped down, head tilted back as if looking for constellations in the late afternoon sky. Her heart jerked. She didn't know him. She was sure she'd never met him. But for a second, the world narrowed to the line of his profile, the way his hand rubbed the back of his neck, the tired kindness in his eyes when he glanced around to make sure no one had dropped anything getting off. He spotted her without meaning to. Their gazes collided. Déjà vu rolled over her hard enough to make her sway. A rush of feelings with no labels attached. Relief, grief, pride, affection so deep it scared her. He blinked, startled. Something in his chest answered. Who? The light changed. Cars honked. The little moment snapped like a soap bubble. She smiled, small and polite, the way you do at strangers whose paths cross for half a breath. Then she turned and headed up the hill. Behind her, he stood for a second longer than he needed to, staring at the spot where she'd been. His hand drifted to his chest, pressing over his heart. It was beating too fast. Get a grip, he muttered to himself, half laughing. She's just some girl. But as he walked away, the word just rang hollow in his head. That night, as the city lights flickered on, two people in different rooms, in different parts of the city, fell asleep with the same sentence echoing faintly in their dreams. You're more than your rank. In a world that had almost turned their lives into content, that quiet, stubborn belief was the real rebellion.